Jacqueline and Harriet, hugely successful, high achieving, clearly fulfilling your full potential. But why do you think so many females, so many women don't? What is it that's stopping them?
Why do I think what's stopping women? I just feel that women, we're multitaskers, yeah? We're taken as multitaskers, and we're also mums. So I still think there's this misconception that we can only do one job, that we're not able to take on a number of tasks, and that actually we are our own worst enemy because we continually check ourselves. Are we good enough? Is it the right answer? Are we doing well enough? And this is no disrespect to the guys in the room, because I'm a big believer in collaboration. I believe women can't work without men and be successful, and vice versa. Absolutely. But I do believe men just get on with it. They don't think as much as we do. We are constantly checking ourselves. And actually, sometimes we've just got to think we are enough and be confident.
Yeah, there's so many reasons, aren't there? It's quite an interesting question, and I think that's that confidence is really key. But while we're talking about maternity, the thing that I think about there is, obviously, not everybody chooses to be a mum, but lots of us do. And I think in my experience in business, there are a lot of misconceptions around maternity and who we will be on the other side of it. And I think that that's really confusing and really holds women back. So, for example, I think as an entrepreneur, I started a business without really thinking about maternity. And I think had I been a bit cleverer and thought about it, I might not have actually started the business, which wouldn't have been the right thing to do. Because the trouble is, when you're an entrepreneur, there is no such thing as maternity leave or maternity cover. You just have to deal with it. So I think I took 1 week maternity leave with my son, which is probably illegal, I now discover. But actually, yeah, actually you just get on with it. And what I've learned from the women, the amazing women who work with me, is that when people do go and have a break from maternity and come back, they were brilliant before, right? They come back even more brilliant because they've learned about multitasking even more than ever, organizing, prioritizing, delegating. If they were good at those things before, my God, are they good at them now? They're juggling their time management. And yet they come back saying, I think I've lost my confidence. I've obviously taken a backward step. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And you think, what are you talking about? You've not had a break from your career. You've learned all of these skills which are going to come with you to the workplace. But what actually happens is that people worry so much when they start a business about the potential of what they're going to do about maternity that often when, say, in their late 20s, they don't. They think, oh, well, I'll wait until after I've had kids. But then what happens is they have kids and who they are on the other side of that is not who they expected. And so maybe they take a bit longer, and then they think, do you know, I just don't think I'm that person that can do that anymore. And they were, and they are, but they don't. So I think that's a really, really big barrier.
Really interesting points that you've both highlighted around second-guessing, we're not good enough. I mean, Michelle Obama in her book Becoming talks so much about that. I'm not good enough, and she said that that was the deterrent for her throughout her career and her time. Of course, you know, maternity, I too was an entrepreneur, and, you know, so I totally empathize with what you're saying there. Given that, you've both carved phenomenally successful careers in male-dominated businesses and industries. So I'm just wondering if you could share with us some of the challenges that you came across, particularly given that you were the minority.
Okay, so I started my career in the very male-dominated industry of construction, quarrying, demolition, all very, very male-heavy dominated industry. Back in the day, it was a joke to have a woman turn up on site. You know, it was, you can imagine, the innuendo. But I was determined that they weren't going to get the better of me. And I think it's down to resilience, it's down to attitude, it's down to who you are. If you want to carve out success, you need to be prepared to work for it. and you need to not be afraid of hard work, and you need to be focused and dedicated on one objective and one outcome only. And for all that we constantly second guess ourselves, actually, if it takes standing in the mirror and reminding yourself you're only as good as what you damn well set out to be, then you can be that person. We can achieve anything, and that includes overcoming any adversity or any male that would stand in your way. I mean, it's really, I'll give you a short story which always springs to mind when I talk about overcoming adversity. I was in Australia, and I was in a huge quarry, and our business was launching a brand new tech product within the construction space. And I was explaining to a bunch of guys who this technology was all about. They were a dealer for a certain product line. And there was about 40, 50 of these guys, and we were all on 2 coaches. Anyway, I was mic'd up, and I was talking them through the technology. And I said, gentlemen, has anybody got any questions? And one guy steps forward, he says, yeah, I've got a question. How many Sheilas are going to come over here and tell us how to do our job? I said, okay, well, that's easy. That'll be one. That'll be me. Because it's idiots like you who stop women coming forward in industry when actually if we work together, we're so much better than that. It is it is absolutely no mistake why the FTSE 100 and some of the biggest performing companies have mixed boards, females and males, because together we work so much more efficiently.
It's an interesting one. I think a few things to say about being on boards as well. I'm a non-executive director on quite a few boards, and there's a lot of male domination there, and there's probably a few more stories in there. But I think for me, the one that stands out was when I was starting my business, I was quite interested in trying to use materials that were more responsibly sourced and more ethically sourced, if that's even a word we're allowed to use anymore. It's a bit woolly. And back then, that wasn't really a thing, because I'm very old. It was probably 27 years ago. And actually, I remember going into one of my gem suppliers' offices and saying, right, I've got a question here. You know, which of these, how can I work out which of these gemstones isn't using child labour? And the guy in that place, there were lots of people there, lots of other suppliers, lots of other buyers like me. And he said, you're in the wrong industry for that hippie crap, love. And I went, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, but how do I know? and actually, what he was trying to do, and I think it was linked with my gender, was to sort of mock me and laugh me out of his supplier, and also probably out of the industry when I look back and think about what he was doing on a wider scale. And I remember thinking, that's interesting. These questions are really uncomfortable, and because I'm a woman, he thinks he can shut them down, because what he thinks is that I'm some sort of touchy-feely woman that's asking questions about kiddies, and that I don't think very many men were asking those kinds of questions at that time. And so what I decided to do was, trying to be resilient, was, I'm just going to keep asking those questions every time I come in here. And I'm going to ask them a little bit louder so that other people in the shop hear a bit more. And so I did. And I asked all of my suppliers until they finally started to find some stuff out with me, because they didn't know. And so they started to ask their suppliers. And they started to say, well, I suppose this one's slightly better. Apparently, they don't do this here, and they do, kind of crossly giving me some actually really important information. And gradually, those questions were what enabled us to launch Fair Trade Gold in 2011, and various other initiatives like that. And those questions make you feel really uncomfortable, but you know what? You can just keep asking them anyway.
Often, people kind of sort of, when you ask them a question, the ignorance, the back chat, the rudeness all comes through when there's a fear and a lack of self-esteem within them. a lack of security within that individual that makes them behave in that way.
Definitely, he was terrified. He was terrified because he didn't know.
Correct. And then I think to your point, you know, asking those questions and asking them louder and standing strong in your power is a way to counter it. Just as education is a knowledge, I think, you know, when you gather the knowledge, you know it's because they've never been put in that situation where anyone's asked them those questions. So thank you. So that's one good strategy. That's my next question, actually, around kind of sort of, you know, what you found as an effective way to create meaningful change in your business and to counter what has been some negative kind of experiences, given that you're both females in these male-dominated environments. Have you got any other tips for our audience here?
Well, from my perspective, it's making your colleagues, male and female, friends. You know, it's really important. It's not his or hers, it's us. It's not she said or he said, it's together. And that is the most important message that I could pass on. From my experience, from being a very young girl in industry, I went into our industry, I work with my two brothers, and I went when I was 16, 17 years old. And I was thrown into the deep end. I didn't know a great deal about it. I'm from the northeast of England. It was, you know, in those days, there was a lot of pits, a lot of miners, etc. It was a really, really brash environment to grow up in. But as my mum said, if you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. So I decided, okay, if I'm going to succeed in this, I better do so, and I better be prepared, you know. Then I thought, okay, instead of being brash and, you know, two wrongs don't make a right, if you pour more fire on fire, you get fire. So let's approach this differently. Let's make friends, and let's try and break down those barriers, and let's see the weaknesses in me might be the strengths in them, and vice versa, because it is always so much better to collaborate. Find out what you're not good at. Make friends. Let them see you're genuine. Be passionate. Let them see that passion. Let them see that enthusiasm. And let them see you're genuine. And you genuinely want to make a difference, not just for you, but for them. Because being the difference really does make the difference. I once asked my guys, I was training them, and I said, okay, we're having a group photograph taken. Who are you looking for in that photograph? And they all looked at me. And I said, well, you, of course. So if we accept that every time we're looking at a group photograph, and everybody in this room, you'll do it today, you'll look for, oh my God, do I look like that? So, but the point is that if that is what we are all individually feeling, if you can make a difference to someone's day and make them feel something they didn't feel before their conversation with you, before their meeting with you, you're halfway there. And so for me, it's actually collaboration. It's working together, male and female, to make that difference.
Yeah, and you've spoken about that point, collaboration, working together. It's not me, it's we, so well. And I think it's such a powerful point. Last word very quickly then to you, Harriet, before I wrap up.
Yeah, I think probably there's so much to say. You know, one of them is, you know, learning that you don't have to behave, you know, in your imagination of what a man would behave like. But I think the one thing I will say is, sitting at the table on many boards, I would say every month there's a man who has the idea I had the following month and claims it as their own. Every month still now. So what you do when they do that, whether you're in the boardroom or just around your kitchen table, you say, that's right, that's the idea I told you about a month ago. I'm really glad that you've come around to supporting it. And don't ever let them get away with it.
Or let them get away with it and think it was their idea and you saved the biggest one for you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Jacqueline and Harriet, thank you.